Now we're talking. Alrighty, we're on live. Thank you, Amber, for coming on here. Alrighty, I've been so excited to talk to you about this stuff. I've been doing my research, and I sent you the matrix I had made up for that.
It was very detailed. I love it.
Well, there's two plans, okay, and there's the most recent one. Well, tell us what you do.
So I work with health insurance. I do individuals, I do businesses, I do life insurance, whatnot. But my main focus right now is for group coverages, and it's not group insurance, but additional benefits for group coverages that help businesses, employees have better benefits, save lots of money, and in turn be able to invest that into something different, tax-free.
Okay, that's all right. So the when I'm doing my research, there's two Trump plans. Trump savings. There's one Trump savings plan, and that is an alternative for the 529 plans and the what's the other one for
there's a couple. We're talking about the policies for the babies.
Right.
So you have the UTMAs or the UGMAs. You have the custodial Roth IRAs, the Trump accounts, which are amazing. I'm very sad that it's only for a very small age group, and then the 529 plans. So you did excellent research.
Okay, so going back, all right. I came to Houston. I joined a ministry, okay,
Mhm.
and they put me in the ministry house, which was what I was supposed to do was be the director of a voc rehab program for veterans and ex-felons, and I was going to get them eating right because there's a direct connection between nutrition and mental health, and they're get exercising because getting their endorphins going. That actually stimulates the creative part of your brain when you work out, right? And then help them with their finances. So I'm in this house with a bunch of young guys, young single guys, right? And I felt like I was back in a platoon again, right? And and so I'm trying to teach them financial literacy. And so the organization I was with, they had these manuals, right? And the very basic lesson was like over their head. I'm like, oh my God, I got to ratchet this back. Okay. And the first thing is like, how did money start? Who came up with the idea of money anyways, right? Do you know who that is?
So, I mean, I have an idea. I'm pretty sure it was the Rothschilds who created the banking system. Before then, it was like a trade system.
Okay, a guy named Hammurabi. Okay, Hammurabi was a Mesopotamian king, and he was a little country between four big countries, and he was real good. He was a real charismatic guy. He was a good negotiator, and so he negotiated tariffs for these bigger countries to go across his little country to trade with each other.
Right.
Okay. And
You're
then,
going way back, like
right,
way
well,
back.
almost we have to, right? And then his military, when they would conquer somebody or defeat an enemy, they would take their booty, right? Their gold, their whatever they had, gold and silver, whatever, right? And some units had more money than the others, and so their commanders went, okay, turn it all into us. They melt it all down, and they would make these little coins with their unit insignia on them, and that was the first shekels. So here is this guy, the king, the ruler of this little country. He's like going, that's a good idea. All right. So he said, we're going to do that nationwide. So then he's like, okay, we got to make these rules for money. Now, this is really interesting. He modeled his rules for money after Joseph being like the CFO for Egypt, and he created this unit of weights and measures. And that was the foundation of Hammurabi's rules.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So then that went like throughout the whole world, those rules, basically the rules for money, right?
Right.
And then Moses comes along, right? Now the Israelites go in captivity in Egypt for 400 years, and then comes Moses, pulls them out of Egypt. But before he was like 40 years in the Saudi desert with the Midianites and the Yemenites. Okay, and the Yemenites were direct descendants from Abraham. I'm sorry, yeah, direct from Abraham, right? Well, he learned about the faith from them. Okay. And then he went back and he exercised that faith and called on God and pulled down all these famines and got the Pharaoh to let him go out of Egypt, right? And then he went up to the mountain, came back there worshiping. They took all the gold out of Egypt, right? And he comes back down from the mountain after getting the law and sees they melted up and formed made a golden calf to worship.
Oh.
And he's like, oh no.
I remember reading this story in the Bible.
This won't work because they don't value the gold.
Yeah.
So he breaks those tablets and then he goes back up and he basically, and people get, oh, you're not going by the Bible. I'm like, well, whatever. All right. He rewrites them. All right. Making, instead of the penalty for shekels, okay, as shekels, because if you have enough money, you just pay your penalty. You do what you want to do. Right. Right. And
still true.
and so he rewrote it to be the animal sacrifice, and then the blood of the animals being sacrificed could relate back to the blood over the doorway when the death angel came during the Passover. Okay, right? Then it goes to Jesus, right? And Jesus basically does away with, or his emphasis is different. The emphasis is not the whole process and the animal sacrifice. It's making that sacrifice or given, it's basically, it's a heart transformation. Okay. And where Moses tried to bring it back to God, okay, Christ is like, okay, you've got to get that personal relationship with God, and you got to clear away. But anyway, the point is, it came back to um, the heart of your business, right?
Right.
The heart of why you're doing things. Okay. So back to that. Then you get in the 80s when I'm a kid, or early, there was no 401k when I was growing up. Okay. I mean, a senior in high school, Ronald Reagan got elected in 1980, and he brought in the 401k because to deal with the unions.
Yeah.
Now back to Hammurabi. Hammurabi had a rule that had a minimum wage. Everybody got it. Okay. So he took over these bigger countries around him. He didn't have to do much fighting. He was like, listen, join us and you'll get this minimum living wage.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody had a baseline of prosperity, all right, in Babylon. Now in the Bible, all right, they're like, that's bad, right? Because people aren't focused on, being righteous, being connected to God, following the law, right? They're focused on just making that money,
Correct.
right? And it's so the moral side of it's done away with, okay, to a point. You can't get away with stealing and killing, right? But pretty much anything else goes, right? and so what happened? What Reagan did, believing that this 401k would give the employees of the company, because he was wanting to have ownership interest in the companies. The employees having interest in the business would cause them to work harder, would be less likely to go on strike, would do less to damage the company, right?
Yeah.
And then they started introducing outside investments, and that's like most 401ks are a bunch of mutual funds.
That is correct.
And you choose what you want, right? And then you get a certain amount of your paycheck goes in there. It's tax deferred, so you're paying less in taxes now. It's going to grow. It's going to grow, all right, and it's going to grow faster because it's not being taxed. But when you take it out, you get after 59 and a half, you're going to pay income tax on that money when you take it out. At age 73 now, you got to take your mandatory distributions and you got to pay tax on that money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then they came up with the Roth IRA. This is after tax dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. Growth tax deferred, and it's tax advantage, tax free when you take it out. And then the same thing, and this has been around for a long time. Life insurance does the same thing. The limits are higher. There's, it's based on your income. If you're W-2, it's 10 times your income. All right. If you're self-employed, it's up to 20 times your income. Why? Because if you're W-2'd, you're already paying into Social Security. And if you're self-employed, chances are you're not. So you need more money.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, your family needs more money. You die, right? They gotta have enough, right? So that becomes how big the bucket is. Okay. So now we got what Trump's trying to do. So tell from your perspective, from what you know, there's the two Trump plans, right? There's the Trump savings for kids, and that's the up to $5,000 a year, but the first $2,000 the government will match for you. Get free money from the government.
So these are for our new babies, which is amazing because every parent wants that financial freedom looking forward. I wish this was around when we were younger and our parents did this. So babies born 2005 to 2028, they're going to be eligible for this. The first time you open up that account, the government is going, basically is what they're referring is they're going to seed the account $1,000. Okay, so when you put 1,000, the government's going to match you that $1,000. You are allowed to put in $5,000 per year tax-free into this baby's account. So basically, as a parent, what you're doing is you're setting your child up for success in the future. And that's like several different steps that you have to take to make sure that takes, because just contributing to the account doesn't mean anything unless there's financial education in between. Yeah.
Okay, so it can be used for healthcare issues. It can be used to buy a new house. Okay, you get the tax deferment if you do
Correct.
that, right? But the here's what he's getting. It's that habit of savings, right?
Correct.
Back when they first started promoting the 401ks, it was that forced savings, right? That money goes to your savings before you even see it, before you get a chance to spend it. What I do, the hardest thing is to get somebody to change their buying habits,
Correct.
right? To be able to have enough, because they're spending everything they're making. It's just the nature of the beast.
That's true.
Okay. And so a lot of what I do, that's why my website is mybusinessyyourbusiness.info. I talk about the synergistic business strategies. That's using the same knowledge base for multiple businesses. So you're getting those multiple streams of income. Okay. When you're young, time's your greatest asset.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And so it's easy for me to show a 22-year-old that just graduated from automotive repair school who's making 60 grand a year, putting away $650 a month that he hasn't seen yet, right? And by the time he's 57, he's got $1 million in that's a tax advantage that he can, he could retire if he wanted to, right?
Correct.
But when you're older, you don't have that time.
You
So
don't.
now your asset is your knowledge base, and you taking that, and I had somebody that I worked for that actually I saw this in action, and he was in the produce industry. He had like 6 companies that supported the produce industry. There's more produce warehouses in the state of Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, than there is in the whole state of California.
Really?
Yeah. And the big thing is the food safety issue. That's the fighting the pathogens, mainly Listeria. Listeria is a pathogen that comes out of the dirt.
Yeah.
It gets spread by the wooden pallets that you put on the field, loading up with your melons or whatever, and put it in the truck. If it's got that dirt they sat on had Listeria, it gets in the pallets, sits on the cement floors of the warehouse, which is cement's just hard dirt. It gets in the building, and if you don't get it taken care of quick enough, you may as well burn that building down. Okay.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it's a big deal. It's a lot of compliance, a lot of, he had a arm of his business, sold the cleaners, degreasers, and the sanitizers to clean the warehouses, to prevent the pathogens, right? He had consulting services, so they get their bookkeeping right and their processes right for the maintenance, right? This sanitation.
Right.
And then he had inspectors. They actually partnered with Primus. Primus is the government entity that manages all this, right? They partnered with them to do the inspections, and then they also had a partnership with the AME certified laboratories, and that's how I ended up getting the job. The scientist that created the PCR system for NASA, so the astronauts could test their food in outer space. When I was in the drone business, and we were trying to figure out how to find Listeria in the dirt with a drone in the air, and I just never could figure that out, right? But when I moved to Edinburgh, Texas, he called me up because we need somebody there. So that's what I did is I repped that guy from all. So that's why I started understanding that process of those multiple streams of income using that same knowledge base.
Right.
Okay. So that's where the people that have. Give you an example. Here in Texas, here in Houston, there's one of 3 underwater welding schools. There's one in Washington State, there's one in Rhode Island, and there's one here. They teach them how to weld underwater. But now they also get them certified the Part 107 license so they can operate the underwater drones, the autonomous drones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they could fly a drone if they wanted to, right? And so let's say they get a welder gets a contract with a oil and gas producer, or a pipeline or water tower. They can fly the drone. They're going to get paid for that. They find where the damage is. They break out their cutting torch and their welder, and they get to work. They can make money flying the drone and then get money as a welder.
Yeah.
Okay. Got another young guy, graduated automotive repair school. This guy's funny. 22 years old, like any young guy. There's part of a man's brain that doesn't get like start functioning until they get that significant other, right?
Uh-huh.
Then they can do stuff, right? But I called this guy up because I'm glad you called, man. He's making 60 grand a year, got his apartment, got a car, got a refrigerator full of food, right? Because man, I got paid all my bills. I got about $1,000 left over. I was gonna go get another tattoo.
Oh God.
Right. 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 But that's what their head is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it was easy showing that, by the time he's 57, putting away the that $1,000 extra he's got every month, putting away $650 a month, he's got, $1 million with all kinds of tax advantages at age 57.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking at what we're talking about. So we got two categories for the Trump savings. Trump savings for the kids' college. That's $5,000 a year. They're going to match the $2,000. All right. It can be used for college. It can be also used for healthcare. It also can be used to buy a house. Then there's the government. The other one, the Trump IRA. Well, they'll give you the limit. It's $1,000, and they'll give you $1,000
Correct.
match. Okay, and they're and it can be used for college funding in some states. Okay, and then there's the other. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at the wrong category, the wrong row. I went the wrong way. Okay, so it's $1,000. It's got a hard cap of 35,000 at age 71.
Mm-hmm.
Gross tax deferred, and it's strictly index funds, or it's interest. Those are interesting. There's a floor, 0 to 2% on those kind of funds. It's going to follow the index, whether it's S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the Dow, whatever. Right?
Right now, they're climbing very high. So
yeah, because the whole market's taken off right now, right?
That's
right.
correct.
So it's when they finally get things settled down with the Strait of Hormuz, and they get this whole thing going on, ending the fighting in Iran.
That's going to come to an end soon. I already know it.
Right. So there's the real interesting challenge right there, because the economy is going to take off.
It is.
Gas prices are going to go down, which is the cost of living, but usually that causes inflation. When you cause inflation, that makes the interest rates go up. But Trump wants to like curtail rising interest rates, but the economy is going to blaze.
The economy is going to do amazing. I don't think the inflation is going to go as high as everybody says, because we're not going to have as much demand. So if we're talking about this, it was it was a 10-step program. First step, get rid of the mass population. So the illegals left. There's not that much demand anymore, right? After that, you control the oilways. So now we have Venezuela, and then we are taking care of the issue in Iran. We're purchasing Greenland. So what we've done is we now have a monopoly on everything, which in turn is going to be best for the American people, because we are not reliant on everybody else in the world anymore. So we've put ourselves first, and it puts us in a much better situation. So when they say inflation is going up, that's a lie. Inflation only goes up because you don't have enough supply for the demand. It's already been curbed.
Well, when you're bringing gas prices down,
correct,
you're going to reduce inflation at the grocery store, because shipping everything you need to the energy for the oil and gas for is going to go.
Correct.
Right. So that's going to help a lot with inflation. So, people, and you're not hearing them talking about that. Their big problem is housing inflation, but you got this interesting situation, this silver tsunami. So I've done some podcasts on the silver tsunami, the baby boomers coming to retirement age, aging
Right.
out of their houses and go into assisted living facilities, right?
Correct.
Right. And so, I mean, I got, it was really, really crazy because I was doing some marketing and I was looking up two events I was going to go do some networking at. And it said the Albridge Community Fair, right? And I'm thinking families and kids, which is my market, right?
Yeah.
25 to 45, married, got kids, own a house with a mortgage, right? That's what I got, can help them, right? And then I get there. Well, I got there early. So I went to go lunch. And while I'm at lunch, I see this younger couple and this older gentleman. I'm thinking they're taking their dad to lunch. Well, what
Yeah.
it was, the guy was deaf. So I could hear everything they were saying. And there was a real estate agent and his wife listing this guy's house. His wife has died. His kids were grown. They were out of the house. And he didn't want to do all the maintenance. He wanted somebody else to take care of him, right? And then I go to my event, and it was an assisted living facility for people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I walk in there, I'm the only guy. It's all a bunch of hospice nurses and in-home care providers, right? A bunch of women. And, it was like, I'm like, oh, then that night I'm seeing the title rep that I used to use, Tycor Title. Ryan Lipsey was doing a podcast talking about this silver tsunami and teaching agents how to get those listings from those seniors that were wanting to go into a senior living facility. Okay. That's really crazy. And then the next day I go to the Houston Investors and Builders meeting. It was two Asian guys. One guy was rehabbing condos or apartments, turning them into condos.
Yeah.
But nobody's buying condos. And the guy, his investment group, there's like 5 of them, bought a hotel in the middle of COVID, and nobody was staying at the hotel. They were going into foreclosure. And I'm like, both of these guys, if they would have turned those apartments into senior assisted living facilities, and the apartment and the hotel into a senior assisted living, they would have had no vacancies.
Correct.
The demand is stupid. It's
Correct.
incredible, right?
And it's
so-
probably the only time that it's going to happen because the new generations are not having children like they did back in the day. We're not going to have this massive overflow of senior citizens in the next 50, 60 years. It's just we don't have the population for it.
Yeah, that's happening around the world. China's got the same problem.
Yeah.
India seems to be keeping it going. India still they're kind of catch up on China as the most populous country, right?
Yeah.
But so looking at the what we're talking about with the Trump IRA and the Trump savings plan, it seems to me that it's a stimulus to get more people in the market, like the 401k did. The 401k, before that, only rich people were in the stock market. If you didn't have the money to pay for an advisor, you weren't in the market.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just an open, you can just, there was no internet. There was no, like, you didn't go to the bank, right? Hey, I want to buy stock, right? So you had to have so if you didn't have money, you couldn't do it. Then now getting the 401k, that got middle America into the market. Okay. And what this is going to do is going to get the people that wouldn't normally have that opportunity, the lower income people. Like I think the threshold's what, 35,000 a year?
It's 35 to 71.
35 to 71. Okay. The 31,000, 5,000 to 71,000. Okay. Getting those people who may not, are probably less investing. And then I've been hearing all day about, how the interest rates coming down is going to affect people's savings. But I remember in 2008, Paul Dietrich, he was the chairman of Foxhall Capital. He was the advisor to both Bush's president and Reagan and Clinton, and he was explaining how if the businesses, if their stock prices got high enough, they would start hiring more people, and that was their gamble. Okay, but what ended up happening was the CEOs took their golden parachute and retired and cashed in their stock options. It got the top end people wealthier.
Correct.
Okay, so this is Trump doing this is opening it up to the lower income. Do you want to speak to that?
I believe that you're correct. He's making an opportunity for people who would not have an opportunity. He's doing it for the future generation. Obviously, our children are important to us. We worry about them. They get older, they go through high school, they're in college. They're going to start their families. And as a parent, your job is never done. You will always worry about your child. Do they have enough food? Do they have this? So what he's doing is he is securing financial freedom for the new generation. And that is probably the best thing that he could do because we're going to need it. The world is uncertain.
Listening to these talking heads, right? They're talking about the interest on the debt being the biggest, but not too long ago, it was not the interest on the debt. It was this huge cost of healthcare because of the babies coming of age, and with their age, they're getting older and their health is dropping. All right.
Yeah.
The cost of healthcare is still, I mean, I guess the interest is still higher, but that cost of healthcare is what's driving the debt.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's 100% correct. Everything that you're saying, insurance companies, they do a risk analysis, right? So as we have this huge generation of people, because it is our silvers are a huge generation of people. Once you start getting into like age 58 up to 80, your health risk has gone from 20% now to 64%. 64% chance that you are going to have a major life incident that's going to cost a lot of money, right? So that is what is driving these astronomical health premiums, and it affects everybody because it's not like healthcare used to be where they did a health assessment on an individual. What they're doing now is a health assessment on a region. So, take it for instance, if you live in Naples, Florida, where your population is 90% retired individuals, the cost of healthcare there is astronomical because it is 90% chance that 50% of the population at least has severe health conditions. So they have to make the whole area pay the insurance because they're going to lose those claims. Does that make
So I
sense?
get like I don't do health insurance.
Yeah.
I'm open health license because the life insurance and annuities that I offer have riders for long-term care and catastrophic illness. So you got to
So
have that
important.
insurance license to offer that.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the industry, the healthcare industry, it's tough because people are bouncing around. They're dropping their current plan, they're going to another one, trying to get a
Yeah.
little bit better. But now, and then every business I talk to, they're looking for healthcare, right? And so I recommend, one of my clients uses Gusto for payroll,
Yeah.
and one of his key employees was asking about HSA, health savings accounts, and none of my providers offer health savings accounts.
Mhm.
You can get Wells Fargo to open up an account for health savings account, but you got to have somebody manage it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why? I bet a 401k, I bet a payroll management company would do that. Sure enough, he uses Gusto, and
Mhm.
Gusto HSA
Yeah.
management. So if you got HSA for payroll, you can offer. If you got Gusto for payroll, you can also, your employees can have health savings accounts through Gusto.
Yeah.
Okay, right. But then I'm And they'll offer, healthcare too, right? They get a group plan with all the companies that are using them for payroll. They they can get into their group health plan together, right?
Right.
But they still have the deductibles and the co-pays. Tell us about the choice plans and how that supplement works.
Absolutely. So, with the choice plans, these are what are known as Cafeteria 125 plans. This was put in place 1978 when they signed it into the Patriot Act. These provide your basic benefits for healthcare. So these will give you, well, they're not all the same. The choice plan specifically will give you unlimited doctor's visits with no copay. These are going to provide for you unlimited urgent care visits, no copay. It's going to give you your most common medications for $3 or under. It's going to provide for you virtual visits. So it's going to give you your day-to-day medical plus 100% preventative covered at no cost. And what is great about these, as you were just talking, the rising cost of healthcare with employers, is they have the option now, which a lot of them are already doing to save costs, is going with like an HSA policy, your high deductible health plan, where you're going to cover those basic necessities before you meet deductible. So you're going to pay 100%. What this does is this is going to layer on top of that health plan, and it's going to give you everything before you have to meet that deductible. And the only time that you're thinking about that is, oh, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a baby, or, I need an open heart surgery or something serious. So it's just a great benefit. So you get more out of your health plan. It costs you zero and gives you more back in your income. Plus, referring back to what we were speaking to before, with the Trump accounts, the Trump IRA accounts, your employer can contribute $2,500 per year to that account on top of your $5,000 per year tax-free. So it protects you.
So I know that it's for businesses to have 50 employees or more. Okay.
Correct.
Is there anything for small business owners that don't have at least 50 employees?
At this time, they are structured for basically small to medium businesses. So it does require at least the 50 employees.
Makes you wonder if there could be a co-op like with the Gusto right now. They're in
That's
payroll.
actually correct. There are several different groups that you can sign under. We work with a couple of them through like a Detago Health. They set up as a group and employer-sponsored policy. So you can have several small employers that sign into like a Detago Health. They're basically a group management, and it provides you the same group benefits.
Okay, this is really interesting because when I got a source now, right? I can just refer them to you. That's it, right? For that. So how much savings is somebody you think is the average somebody saving with the choice plans for their healthcare?
That's a great question. So first of all, I'm just going to point out it literally costs nothing for us to put you on this program. Like nothing. Each employee on average is going to get back up to $1,200 on their paycheck, tax free, right? Each employer is going to get back $631 on average for each employee. So great for small businesses. If you're an employer, you have 1,500 employees. I mean, you are, let me do the math because I didn't do it before, but you're saving millions. Like you're honestly saving millions. So it it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins. You get more benefits, everybody's getting more money back, and it's silly not to do it. What do you think?
That's a good close, right? It's silly not to do that. Right?
It
That's a good one.
makes sense.
The well, it's I'm in the VA system,
Okay.
so because that's the benefit of getting shot at, right?
Yeah, I know. They
Huh?
don't do enough for you, sweetie.
They so I don't have to worry about that. But uh, there's most people don't have that option, and
Correct.
it can wipe somebody out not having health care,
That's correct.
right? And I mean, I've seen so many people issues on their debt. They got this medical bill, and that things could happen. You can be as careful as you want to be, and
Something's gonna happen.
something happens. And next thing you know, you're in debt for the rest of your life. Or your
Mhm.
wife got pregnant and you didn't have health care.
That's a great $15,000 right there.
Yeah, that happened to me. I got out of the military, and my, they gave my wife birth control pills that were too strong, and she had skipping cycles and all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And so we went through 2 cycles of in vitro fertilization, right? Nothing
Yeah.
happened. I got out of the military. I'm like, oh well, we're gonna have one. I already had had my first son, and then next thing you know, 3 months after I got out of the military, no health care, she got pregnant. And I'm like, I grew up on a farm, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm like, there was this guy that I was working. I was standing in front of a kiosk in front of Costco and Price Up stores, getting people to
Yeah.
sign up for something on a room addition, like a sunroom, garden room, patio room. The guy next to me sold vinyl siding, and we started talking about this. He goes, "Oh, you grew up, have a home birth." I delivered 3 of my own kids, right? And
Oh my goodness, no.
I'm like, I grew up on a farm, man. I delivered hundreds of hogs, a couple cows, and a horse. I can
Tell
do
me you
this, right?
didn't. Did you do it?
She's like, no, no way, right? And then I got another job as a venture capital broker, and I'm talking about they didn't have health care, right? But one of the ladies knew somebody who was a midwife.
Okay.
And so we had 2 midwives, we had a home birth, and it cost me $2,000.
That's not bad.
Right. Way better than, you go to the hospital, it's going to be, like I said, 12, 15,000, right?
Correct.
And that's a big, I mean, then you're jacked up for buying a house, there's all issues, you got with that bill, right?
Yep.
It's a steep bill if you don't have health care. And then so many people are without health care, because the Affordable Care Act wasn't that affordable.
The Affordable Care Act made insurance affordable. It drove the rate up so high because they required everybody to have health insurance. Um, and that's when it switched from being based upon an individual's own health to being based upon your region, your state, the United States. They took it at a time where, again, we're talking about these baby boomers entering their silvers. Um, and we've had the highest healthcare costs that we've had in years. The worst possible thing that ever happened to health insurance was the Affordable Care Act.
So what I'm looking at these two, the Trump savings plan that you can use for your kids' college,
Yeah.
and the Trump IRA, but I'm seeing the other options that may be better. Okay, it all depends on where people are at. Okay,
Correct.
where I'm thinking that what people really need to do is sit down and get a consultation to see where they are.
Financial education is everything, and nobody knows everything. So it's always great to reach out to people who understand more than you might.
Well, that's what, like ever since I've been in doing this, it's like, in the SEAL teams, right?
Mm.
You can't start they drop you off in a helicopter in the middle of the night or in a boat on the beach in the middle of the night, right? You can't start like humping to your target until first you got to figure out where you're at. Right. And it's the same thing with finances. You
Correct.
can't figure out how to get to where you want to go until you figure out where you're at. And so many people they don't want to look at it. They're like, they don't want to see how their money's being spent.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to make sure they got enough to get through the month. Right. But what they're not thinking about is when you get to the point where like, I ain't strong enough to do what I used to do. Right. Or I'm, it's harder on me than it used to be. Right? I don't want to do this anymore. And then what do? Right. And they're like, it's Social Security isn't very much.
It's not
anymore. And it's, with the government, under Clinton, to pay down the debt, and then it got ran up again by Bush and Obama, and then it just keeps going up and up and up, and they keep the government owes everybody that pays into Social Security, right?
correct.
And so
for your entire lives, there's no reason that the funds are now being cut.
Well, you start hearing people that are younger going, why do we have to pay those old people? They're not, because they paid into it. That's why, right? Mm-hmm. And initially, it was almost like who got in trouble? What candidate? One of the candidates called it a Ponzi scheme, and people just freaked out. But that's what it was. There was so many more. There was like 44 people paying in for every one person taken out back when they started, and then about 3 years ago, it went to like a 1-to-1 ratio. Now there's more people pulling from Social Security than there is people contributing to Social Security.
That's correct.
So that's so don't want to count on that too much, right? You got to find another option.
Correct. You need to secure your own future because who knows how long that's going to last.
Now we're past an hour. But it's going so fast, right? Isn't that crazy? Tell us about how this solution, the choice plans, and the rescuing of the trafficked children, how that works.
Yes. So what we're doing with the choice plans is obviously our goal is to help businesses provide you with affordable insurance, provide you more benefits, give you money back in your pocket. But what we're doing with this is for every group, every employee that we can get signed in under this, we are donating our large portion of money into a group that is rescuing trafficked children. So we want to bring those babies home. We want to make sure they have the medical help they need, the therapy. We want to get them normal, get them back with their families and living their lives, which is a really, really honestly dear to my heart. Just personal family issues there. But so as I was saying earlier, win-win-win. The wins are more benefits, more money in your pocket, and you're saving babies. And you can do that by reaching out to myself. You can reach out to Ruben, and we can help you get set up, and you can save some lives too.
Yeah, how do we even know each other?
How do we know each other? We actually met with this organization. So we both jumped in to save these babies, and it's a huge step. And
so
I think it's amazing.
I'm getting ready to do what I do. That's just grinding. That's making a lot of phone calls, scheduling appointments, maybe going out, finding events going on, doing some networking, getting to meet, doing some marketing, and all of a sudden the phone rings, right? Yeah. And it's this Indian chief that for over a year we were trying to work through with his contacts. So he has tribal energy, and there's some Native American reservations that produce oil and gas, others that don't, and he was brokering the two, right? And with relationships, we were trying to do some boxing events on the reservation, right? And it was hard because so many tribes have been fleeced by other promoters, right?
Yeah, it's
They get
terrible.
a they get a bad taste in their mouth, right? And so, you know, he calls me up. He goes, "Just tell me who you are. Just tell this guy who you are." And it was Daryl.
Daryl Coates, I love him.
So Daryl, I'm like, well, I'm an ex-Navy SEAL. I used to be a boxer with Roy Jones. He goes, "Oh, I got to get my business partner on the phone." And it was Roy.
Roy, he's a great man too. Yeah.
And so that's when I first found out about the RJJ campaign to rescue the abducted children,
Yeah.
right? And then just like 2 days ago was the day. There's actually a day for murdered and missing women and children in the Native American tribes. Did you know that?
That's news to me. No, I didn't know that.
A really big problem on the reservations, right? Because and what it is, it's money. Because if you've got enough money, there's a bunch of my ex-Navy SEAL buddies and special operations guys that will go after the people that abduct these. They'll rescue the kids, right? And the women, they'll go in and get them, right? But you got to pay for that,
Yeah.
right? They don't have, they don't. There's nobody getting arrested. There's nobody getting prosecuted. There's nobody getting rescued for these trafficked women and children on the reservations. So
that's unfortunate. We're gonna fix that.
So with the from the boxing events going to cover that, we can solve that problem.
Correct. And we have a big one coming up June 12th.
Right.
Yep.
Where's it at?
That is a great question. Let me find out.
They're talking about they're talking about New Jersey, right?
I think so. Yeah, I believe it's Atlantic City.
In Florida, and they're talking about one of the tribes that's got casinos.
The Hard Rock.
Hard Rock, right. So don't want to jinx it because it hasn't been confirmed yet. But
yeah, I'm not even supposed to be talking about that yet.
Oops. Right, but wow, this is really cool. So here's what's going to happen. Okay, so when we end this, we actually only been talking for 52 minutes right now, right? We had some little technical difficulties getting this thing started, which I never had before. This is really wild, but so StreamYard is going to break up this podcast into shorter videos. So I'll send you all of those.
I love that.
I'll send you the full recording, and I'll send you private. But this is a really great. I mean, when I look at the options with the Trump savings, the Trump IRA, the traditional IRAs, the Roth IRAs, the 529 and the 457 plans, and the Index Universal Life products, right? It's in some areas like the
there are benefits and there are negatives to each product.
Right. So it's got to be like a customized solution, right? And so basically, people just need to get a consultation and see. They may have heard about the Trump plans,
correct,
but there might be other better options depend on where they are at, and I can help them with that.
Amazing.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
It was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Ruben.
So how would somebody get in touch with you?
So I can definitely give you my number, my email, or you could put it out there. That's okay. But I'm more than happy to assist with anything.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, actually I do. I'll send it over to you so you can put it in a link.
All right. I'm gonna put a banner from your website on my website. How about that?
Right on.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. This is very informative. Did you learn anything?
I did. You actually gave me some history that I was unfamiliar with. So I appreciate that.
Well, what happens is when you all the way back to Hammurabi, Hammurabi expanded his kingdom, Babylon, right?
Yeah,
By not fighting. He says, "Hey, join us, and you get this mandatory minimum wage, right?"
right.
And people just jumped on their side, and that's how they expanded Babylon.
It was the
Okay,
first union of the world.
right, and so then you see what Reagan did, and then then the how things progress, right? And there there's been this whole issue with the silver tsunami that people have been dealing with since before Ronald Reagan, right? Everybody saw it coming,
Yeah.
right? And how it's like when I talk to people a lot of times, if they can make a pivot, if you're in construction or if you're in real estate or if you're in different administrative roles, that's a shift. It's just a pivot,
Yeah.
and you're in the market. You're in the flow again. There's a book called 3 Feet from Gold. It's like the continuation from the what's the Think and Grow Rich. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what it was is this guy wanted to be a gold miner, and he struck gold. So he bought all this equipment, right? And then he dug for 3 feet and then lost the vein. And he's digging and digging and digging and digging, and he's he's not making any money. Finally, he goes bankrupt, has to sell all of his equipment, and somebody who was a junk dealer bought all of his equipment and went back, and he got advised by somebody that was a geologist, and they said, well, go 3 feet one way or the other and you'll probably hit that vein again. And that's what the guy did.
Yeah.
Now this guy became rich, okay, and then the guy that actually started, the one that sold all the equipment, the one that drilled 3 feet and then lost the vein, that guy became a millionaire in the life insurance business. He became so that's how that whole story goes. But the point is, there's that shift in the market. Like when I was in the mortgage business, the rates changed, right? The jumbo rate went from 252,000, 272,000 for the conforming loan limit.
Right.
And I had somebody that was, buying a property under so because of the jump, he could get the conforming rate rather than the jumbo rate.
Right.
All right. But my broker didn't pay attention. He came to the office one day and I wasn't there, and I almost lost the deal because that broker didn't pay attention and quoted him a jumbo rate. I came back in the office and like, oh no, I had to tell them both that the rules had changed. Same thing when redlining was ended, right? I hit all the flips in Logan, San Diego, which is the barrio, which is a red line area. So what's happening right now with this Trump IRA and the Trump savings plan, it's opening up an opportunity for those lower income people. Okay. Correct. And it's going to stimulate the market. One, all right. It's going to create wealth within that middle America.
Correct.
Which if we didn't have that, our country wouldn't be what it is.
Right.
And it's dwindling. So this is an effort to bring that back. But getting them, in the banks have been saving. Give us your money, give us your money, give us your money. All right. But now you can't, you're not going to get it. You're not getting it. Your money's just going to sit there. It's going to be safe up to $250,000 a year.
Uh-huh.
Or $250,000 per, you know,
Account. Yeah.
per account, right? Or not even account. You can have like 3 different accounts at the bank, but total
Yeah.
250,000 for each bank, and you're protected by the FDIC. But beyond that, you're not, right?
That's
There's
it.
not a lot of benefit other than liquidity for your money.
Correct.
Banks now, right? And it's really, you got to be. It's not just saving. You need to have investing. Investing and savings are not the same thing.
Correct.
Right. But this with the index funds being the foundation of these plans, it's going to give them the growth in the market because of the S&P or the indexes they're tied to better than a bank CD
Yes.
or something. All right. So just making that distinction. All right. This has been a great podcast. It's one of my better ones. I'll send you the shorts when I get them, when they get processed, and you can do what
Okay.
you want to do with them.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.